Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Becky, can you please call roll?
Mr. Avery? Here. Mr. Gastrite? Here. Mr. Haggard? Here. Ms. Huff? Here. Ms. Rhodes?
Here. We can please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to the meeting tonight. While we get settled in, I would like to read the board commitments. The Covington Board of Education commitments. To keep students at the center of our discussions and decisions, the members of the Covington Board of Education pledge to do the following commitments. We will be open-minded and value everyone's point of view, that each board member will be encouraged to express their views. We will agree to disagree respectfully, that each decision will be based on facts and district goals. We will complete routine business efficiently and devote time and talent toward visionary plans. We will lead and be guided by and accountable to our community, and to respectfully remind each other of these commitments. Becky, do we have any public input this evening?
No, ma'am.
All right. We have a stacked agenda tonight, so why don't we just get right into it. We will start tonight with our district recognition and presentations. Our first recognition tonight is from Latonia Elementary. We do have our Certified Employee of the Month, and Mr. Gastrite has something to say about Ms. Ritter.
Sarah. So Ms. Ritter was nominated by Miranda Meyer and staff of Latonia Elementary. And it says, Allison Ritter truly loves our students and is dedicated to doing whatever it takes to support them in being successful. She is an exceptional teacher and leader here at Latonia. She serves as a team lead and is a teacher representative on the district leadership team. Allison is always eager to gain new knowledge and immediately implements it to benefit her students' learning. She meets the varying needs of her students by continually reflecting on her practice and adjusting her instructional methods. Students learn at high levels through her commitment to continually fine-tune her craft. She creates a caring yet challenging learning environment for students where they feel comfortable taking risks and making mistakes. Colleagues learn from her example and are comfortable going to her for questions and observations. It's no surprise that her fellow staff members nominated her this year as one of our staff members. Here are some of the things her colleagues had to say about her. Mrs. Ritter is wonderful and our students are lucky to have her. Mrs. Ritter goes above and beyond to connect with her students. She goes the extra mile in everything she does and is such a positive person. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ritter. All right, next we are going to recognize our classified employee of the month, and we have Ms. Kim Frank. Mr. Avery will actually have something to say for her.
Ms. Kim Frank has been nominated as classified employee of the month. We could not do what we do here at the Latonia without the support and dedication of Kim Frank. She does everything with everything, and so coffee was ready for chaos coordinator. Ms. Frank runs the front office like wonderful. She's checking in students, helping with buses, answering phone calls, and the door sometimes at the same time. Assisting volunteers, getting substitute teachers situated, managing attendance, and this is all before 9 a.m. Additionally, she runs our school guard for our after-school program, leading our Urbania, Bloomerang, and cooking clubs. Students and staff are so lucky to have Ms. Frank. You know, some things our staff have to say about Ms. Frank. She is an amazing help to everyone. She is personally kind and patient with the staff, students, and families. Kim always goes above and beyond to make sure our students and staff are able to be successful. She has the kindest heart and cares deeply for each and every student. She is the glue that holds this whole place together. Thank you, Ms. Franks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Frank. Next, we have our volunteer of the month. Ms. Huff will actually speak about Ms. Amber Biden.
Okay, Ms. Biden has been an amazing volunteer here at Latonia over the past 6 years. She helps in any way needed, and we are so grateful for her support. Ms. Biden runs all of our monthly popcorn Fridays, works in our library 3 days a week to assist students with checking out books, and has volunteered every year to help out at the end of our school year carnival celebration. If there is ever a need, we can count on Ms. Biden support when requested. I'm not sure what we will do without her next year as her child transitions to middle school, but we will definitely bless to have her all this time. We appreciate.
Thank you, Ms. Biden. All right, next we have our board member recognition. Feels a little strange to announce that, but we will be recognizing you. Just kidding. And Mr. Avery, of course.
Well, first, let me take this opportunity to thank our folks from Latonia. You three people are part of what makes Latonia a very, very special place. And we really appreciate all we do for our students. So thank you so much and great job for being recognized tonight. Now, I will first apologize if I get a little choked up. We're going to be talking about two people that mean a great deal to me, and this means a great deal to me. So, first, I want to begin by talking with one of the two board members that remain on this board who made history by hiring me in Covington 9.5 years ago. And thank them both, Mr. Avery and Ms. Huff. But tonight's not your night, Ms. Huff, so tonight is Mr. Avery's night. So I just want to take some time to recognize and talk about him for a short period, and then hopefully honor him and Ms. Furley with a little token of appreciation. Mr. Avery, of course, retired fire department firefighter, elected to a vacant seat in September 2009. Elected, I think he was appointed to the vacant seat in 2009. Elected in 2011. Re-elected 2015 to 2019. Served on the Budget Committee, Team Foundation, Local Planning Committee, Covington Education Foundation. A few words from Covington Partners about your mentorship. Throughout the last 9 years, Mr. Avery has been an exceptional mentor and staunch supporter of Covington Independent Public School District. Since 2013, Mr. Avery has mentored 15 young men through the Covington Partners mentoring program and has maintained a strong relationship with his mentees even after their graduation from Holmes High School. As a mentor, Mr. Avery strongly believes in the importance of education as the key to success for his mentees. He often connects with his mentees, parents, teachers, and guidance counselors for additional strategies to improve their academic performance, and the mentees know they are supported unconditionally on every front, including academics, athletics, and personal. Jared Avery is a steadfast advocate for all youth, particularly those most vulnerable, and has had a mission to empower young men through education, opportunities, and mentorship. Thank you, Mr. Avery, for the joy you bring to everyone you encounter and your passion for empowering youth through your mentor volunteerism. Training hours. Mr. Avery's earned over 205 board member training hours through Kentucky School Board Association. Some personal comments from me there, Mr. Avery. I perceived you as in times as an older brother, an uncle, a mentor. I think of you as a man of integrity, man of few words, and I found a quote for you. Wisdom is knowing what to do next. Virtue is doing it. You are both wise and virtuous. I am grateful you shared those qualities with me and this school district for my 9.5 years of working. Thank you, Mr. Avery. favorite people. It's Sarah Furlich. Ms. Furlich has two daughters in our district, Lane and Cole. One attends Sixth District and the other attends Holmes Middle School. I think it's Lane that attends Holmes Middle School and Coleman that attends Sixth District. Ms. Furlich works for Huntington Bank. Recently, she's appointed to a leadership role that keeps her jumping and hopping all the time, but she's also made time to serve this community, her service on this Board of Education. She was elected in 2019, served 4 years until now. She served on the Budget Committee, School Calendar Committee, Student Conduct Committee, and Team Foundation. Ms. Furlich has earned over 63 board training hours through the Kentucky School Board Association. I had the pleasure of attending the National School Board Association with Ms. Furlich when she first came on board. That's when I learned so much about her. Learned how much of a big heart, how committed, how service-oriented she was, and just how giving she was as a person. I don't know if many know this about her, but when she was when her oldest daughter was at Sixth District, she started a Girl Scouts just on her time, and everything was funded through her personal bank account. Like the snacks and everything was funded by Ms. Furlich. And although she didn't always feel appreciated, I'm sure most people knew the giving spirit she had with her, especially me. Like I said, she's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, a person that has empathy and cares for everyone, and you will be missed on this board, and I appreciate the time I have to work with you throughout this time. So thank you, Ms. Furlich. Continue to be the person you are, because you are a special person, and so are you, Ms. Gray. Token of our appreciation for the service to this school district. Super Bowl tickets, I got them on the way. Got them on the way. Might have to wait a little bit for them, but I got them on the way. Thank you very much. Thank you.
My goodness. I told Becky that the strawberries to me are like her dropping little flowers for me. So she just gave me the biggest bucket of flowers. That is the sweetest. So sweet. Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like I should say something, but I don't know if I have the emotional capacity for it right now. This has been one of the most incredible experiences. It is overwhelming sometimes, the amount of work that goes into this, but it is so fulfilling. And every single person in this room should also share in this joy that we have serving the community. What you guys do is incredible and unmatched. This is going to be a very long meeting, so I'm going to continue with the meeting. But thank you so much. Really, it means a lot. Next up, we are going in for informational items. We do have, who do we have online? I didn't check to see who we have. Is it Eric or Eric? Oh, okay. We are going to do the audit report for fiscal year 2022, and this will be virtual. Hi there, Eric. How are you? Can you hear us?
Hello, how are you?
We're great. How are you?
I'm doing all right, good better. So great to be there in person, and unfortunately, I
That is quite all right. We hope you feel better.
everybody hear me?
We're working on audio a little bit. We're hearing through a very small speaker, but we're working on it.
Did everybody get the handouts that my lovely wife dropped off today?
We do have those.
Okay. I'll go ahead and present my screen now. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
All right. So are we good to go?
We are.
All right, well, thanks again. Again, sorry I could not be there in person. Had a great night lined up to be with you guys now, and then holiday party at Chart House after this, and plans change. So thanks again. I'm here to provide the auditor's report to the board for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. Want to thank the board again for having us as your auditors. It's been many years since we started the relationship, and we look forward to continuing a relationship in the future. What Barnes Denny performed is an audit of the 2022 financial statements in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, as well as government auditing standards, as well as performed a single audit compliance audit in accordance with the uniform guidance. The required communications here, the differentiating between what the auditor is responsible for and what management is responsible for. The financial statements are the responsibility of management. Our audit does not relieve the management of that responsibility. The internal controls are responsibility of management. As part of our audit, we look at internal controls from a risk-based model and plan our audit accordingly, but we do not issue any opinion on those internal controls within the district. And if there are any questions on what the difference between our responsibilities and what the management responsibilities are, you can request a copy of the engagement letter that was signed back in April of 2022. Any questions on those first two slides? So those are the required communications we have to communicate every year to the board. Any questions on those two slides?
No questions.
No question.
Okay. The next slide is the executive summary. Here is the good news for the audit. We issued an unmodified clean opinion on both the financial statements as well as the major federal program. That is the highest opinion that we can get, so great job there. Thank you, Annette and her team, as always. There were no disagreements. There were no consultations with other independent accountants. One change this year is the implementation of GASB 87. What that is leases, any leases, such as for Covington were for copiers, some computer hardware, as well as through children's home. Those were now put on the district-wide financial statements as an asset and a liability. So that is something new that was different this year compared to previous years. So what that, it didn't affect any of the funds outside of the district-wide where you have your fixed assets, your bond obligations, et cetera, pension liabilities. So that's the only place where this shows up. And I'll go to here. That adjustment for the leases was an increase to assets by $764,000, liabilities 810, some interest expense, as well as decrease in fund balance. So anybody that's audited anywhere under government auditing standards had to implement this standard for the years ended June 30th, 2022. Internal accounting estimates, the biggest one being depreciable lives and capital assets, which is every year. There were no internal control matters that were reportable. We are not aware of any matters related to fraud. And then other written communication at the end of the audit, we require a signed management representation letter that allows us to issue the financial statements to KDE and to the district. Any questions on those two slides?
No questions.
All right, I'll move on to some financial information here. The first one being statement of net position trends district-wide. As you can see here, assets and deferred outflows stayed consistent from 2021 to 2022. But we did have a decrease in the liabilities and deferred inflows, which came from the lowering of the pension and OPEB liabilities based on estimates, et cetera, there provided by the actuaries, which resulted in a less negative net position number on the far right, you can see the less negative position, the yellow graph compared to the blue graph on the far right. A breakout of that net position is here on the next slide. You can see the investment in capital assets stayed fairly consistent year over year. The restricted fund balance, which includes your pension and OPEB liabilities, went less negative, so goes along with this far right column here, the restricted, and then what's left over and stayed consistent is the unassigned fund balance at the far right there. So again, fund balance went less negative due to OPEB and pension liabilities, which you can see here in the middle one called restricted fund balance. Revenues over expenses district-wide. Very good news here. The last 2 years, expenses were higher than revenues. This year, that switched where revenues were higher than expenditures. So again, very good news there compared to the last 3 years. And we'll see more on that here in a second as well. Balance sheet trends, general funds. Here you can see an increase in assets, which was an increase to investments that the districts hold within the district holds within the general fund. So that caused the increase there on the asset side. And again, slight increase to the liabilities, but nothing substantial there, which again results in a higher fund balance from 21 to 22, as you can see on the far right hand. So again, very good news there. The general fund is the operating fund of the district. So whenever that fund increases, that is very good news, and that's happened the last 2 years, from 2020 to 2021, and again in 21 to 22. So very good news there. The next slide is revenues over expenses, general fund. As you can see here, increase in fund balance with the revenues being higher than the expenses in both 21 and 22. The increase in the revenue, which is that blue line there, is due to increase in taxes and increase in state funding. So again, those were the big increases from 21 to 22 for Covington. Here's sort of a breakdown of revenues in the general fund. As you can see, it's kind of hard to see based on the chart here, but an increase in taxes in that top graph there, as well as you can see on the bottom, motor vehicles increased year over year as well, 21 to 22. Revenues over expenses, food service, and I believe this is my last slide. More good news here. Again, a lot of good news for the district. As you can see, in 2020 and 2021, expenses exceeded revenues. In 2022, revenues exceeded expenses. The increase in revenue here, year over year, was due to federal funding, which again helped create a positive carry forward in the food service fund. And that is all I have. Any questions on any of that information?
Are there any questions?
The audit was sent to KDE on the middle of November. And again, I want to thank the board, thank Annette as well and her team. Any questions?
I don't believe there are any questions tonight. Annette, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that, or do you feel okay?
You're good, thanks,
All
Eric.
right, thank you so much, Eric. Great
All right,
presentation.
thanks for allowing me to do this remotely, and happy holidays to everybody.
Same to you. We hope you feel better.
Everyone's
Thank you very
waiting.
Yeah, we're all waiting.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you as well.
Thanks.
Okay, moving right along. We are going to get our update from California Elementary. We have Ms. Myers with us this evening. How are you?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come talk to you about some of the wonderful things going on at Latonia. So I'm just gonna jump right in, because you guys do have a jam-packed agenda tonight. So for Points of Pride at Latonia, we really pride ourselves on creating a sense of community and family within our school and providing a learning environment that really focuses on developing the whole child. Our goal is to create a school where students and staff want to be, and they want to be part of what we're doing. They care about one another, they support one another, and they challenge one another. And then we do have that focus on the whole child. We know that academics and then social emotional behavior, in order to get our mission of making sure every child meets their full potential, we have to focus on both of those areas, and they work together in order to get to that. And then as you'll hear throughout this presentation, we set high expectations for our students and our staff. Our three top areas of growth that we are currently focusing on are just continuing to work on our unit planning and our explicit direct instruction model, our multi-tiered systems of support, so making sure that we are using data to inform our decisions, focus on making sure that our interventions are aligned with the student deficits that they have, and then regularly making adjustments as needed based on that data. And then our last one is just teacher development and support. So we know that this job requires a lot. So we have a focus on just making sure that our staff really have a voice and that we are providing them what they need to be successful. And you'll see one of my favorite quotes on that slide. It's really that the most important factor in a student's success is the person standing in front of that classroom. So we are very blessed to have some fantastic educators like Ms. Allison Ritter at our school, and we know that that will have a great effect on our students. So how do we promote ourselves out in the community? We have several events throughout the school year. We have a Meet the Teacher Night at the beginning of the year that always has a really great turnout. This year was no different. And we just take that opportunity to positively interact with our families and give them information that will just help their students be successful for the entire year. We also have regular family nights throughout the year. We have already had our first one in October was a trunk or treat, and it had about 120 or 136 students attended that event. It was one of our highest attended events. It was wonderful. And we're getting ready to do a Cookies with Santa night in the next few weeks, which we are hoping to have a similar turnout for. And with those events, we always have an academic or literacy component as well. We also have clear and frequent communication with our community members and our families. We do communication through our campus system, through our Facebook page, through our web page, and then also we use Class Dojo to regularly communicate with our families as well. We have school guidelines to success t-shirts. So those have our guidelines to success. There are 5, and the acronym for it is CARDS, obviously for our Cardinals. And it's just cooperating with others, attitude counts, respect everyone, decide what's best, and strive for success. And we really use those 5 things throughout everything that we do. So we were blessed this year to be able to get back to having our morning assemblies in the morning with the whole school, where we really use that time to build that sense of community within our school. Each day we talk about a different guideline. We randomly call students up to share how they exhibit that guideline. Students cheer each other on. We use a lot of the Larry Bell strategies that we learned at the beginning of the year for cheers. And so students are getting to know each other. 5th graders are cheering on 2nd graders, 5th graders are helping kindergartners. So it's really just been great to be able to do that again now that COVID is past and we can have everybody together again. We also have one-to-one mentors in our school, and then we do some things with Rosedale over in Latonia. This past month, we had our students in our class create placemats for Thanksgiving and laminated those and took them over and delivered them to Rosedale so that the residents could have those when they had their Thanksgiving dinner. So we try to do things like that for our community as well. For how we meet the needs of the whole child, we do have tier 1, 2, and 3 supports in place for both academics and behavior. And we have our multi-tiered system of support meetings every 6 weeks. So those rotate through the different grade levels. And that's where we're really looking at our data, both academic and behavior data, and making decisions based on that data on what we need to stay the course with or what we might need to change in order to meet the needs of the students. So I've talked already a lot about how we use data, and we use data for everything at Latonia. So I wanted to include some of that data so that you guys can see how we kind of monitor the progress that we're making. So the next page is our Kentucky summative assessment data from the last several years, mainly in reading and math. And you'll see on the reading side, our novice is actually lower than it was pre-pandemic on our test scores last year. Our distinguished is higher than it was pre-pandemic. And our proficient and distinguished combined is right about where it was. And we are 0.8 away from being caught up to where we were pre-pandemic. So we've really seen the gains in reading coming back. With math, we have made gains since the pandemic. However, we have not seen that bounce back quite as strongly as we did with reading. And we've noticed that the gaps that students got during the pandemic were just a little bit harder. With reading, the standards build in a very sequential way, and they're almost the same standards at every grade level. They just get a little bit more in depth. Where in math, some of those skills are completely different skills. So those gaps are just a little bit harder to close. So we are very excited that we just got a math interventionist hired. We've been trying to hire a math interventionist and finally got someone that started this month. So they're going to be doing some specific work with math interventions in our building, in addition to what our teachers have already been putting in place. But we have seen growth. Our novice did reduce 13.6 from the previous year, and proficient and distinguished did increase 20.6%. But again, we still have more growth to make there. If you turn to the next page, we have our state comparisons. So in reading and math combined, we performed higher than the state average in several areas. All students, white students, African American students, economically disadvantaged students, and special education students. And when you look at the economically disadvantaged students and the special education students, we were about 10% higher than the state average in those areas. So while we still have room to grow, we are extremely proud of the progress that we are making, and we know that this growth will continue if we continue to work the strong systems that we have in place. If you turn to the next page, again, talking about that whole child, we look at the academic side, now the behavior side. You will see our progress for the last several years with behavior. We have seen a little uptake in behavior this year, but it has been, if you look at our referrals for that first part, we've had 34 events, but only 13 students, which is a decreasing amount of students that were involved in those events. And with that data, 24 of those events were from 6 students. Same with our coaching calls. We've had 104 this year, but 63 of those calls have been from 7 students. So what we noticed is we've just got a pocket of very intense students right now, and we put some very strategic interventions in place with them. And this data ended October 31st, because that's when this report was due before our November data was in, and we were just looking at that in our foundations team yesterday, and we are seeing that those students with the interventions we've put in place, and they've been in place, you know, it took a while, obviously, to get them identified and to get those interventions in place. We're starting to see that those are declining, so we expect to see that trend continue for the rest of the year. Something else we did implement for our 4th and 5th grade this year is Saturday school. So for some of these heavy hitters, what we did not want to do was get out of school suspension. We know when students are not in school, it is not helping their academics or their behavior. So what we implemented this year was 8 to 11 on Saturdays. Myself, my assistant principal, and our counselor, we rotate covering that. And if we have some, before we look at out of school suspension, we always go to Saturday school if we can as an option. Parents have been very on board with that because they don't want their kids missing school either. So that has helped with some of those heavy hitters as well. Once we implemented that, they started realizing we really don't want to do it on Saturday. So that has been successful as well. Next, we're going to shift to PLCs, and I apologize, you have our packet, but in your red folder, you also have some supporting documents. I know last year, after I left, you guys asked me to email you a few things, so I just included some things that would support what we're kind of talking about. So that is in your packet as well, if you need it, and I will reference some of that as I go through. So for PLCs, we have planning days in addition to the district teacher equivalency days. Every 6 weeks, we try to provide our teachers with a planning day on top of those equivalency days that you all approved the district calendar, which has been extremely beneficial to us, and we really do appreciate that. Our K-2 teams plan by grade level, and our 3 to 5 teams plan as content teams. So the math teachers plan together, the science teachers plan together. And then we also have additional planning opportunities where I will stipend teachers if they want to come in and work with the coach outside of those days. And then our PLCs really focus their time on looking at the data. They do assessment analysis sessions for the end of unit assessments, including goal setting, using a document that Mr. Garrison shared with us this year. They do data monitoring and Mastery Connect for their formative assessments, and then STAR CDM monitoring, which is just fluency checks to see how students are progressing with fluency. And then in your packet, so the second item in your red folder is actually an example. I know last year you guys asked to see an example of this, of just what their assessment analysis reflection entails. So that's where they really are breaking things down in their classes by demographics, by male, female, just different things. So you can kind of look through that. And then the goal setting sheet that they use is at the end of that packet as well. So if you want to see what that looks like, that is in there. And then we also regularly celebrate with our PLC. So again, part of that morning assembly has really given us that opportunity to celebrate both our staff accomplishments and our student accomplishments. The goal setting sheet that you see at the end of this packet, whenever a class meets that goal, we actually highlight that class in morning assembly and cheer them on and talk about the success. We have a celebration station in our teacher's lounge where we have a lot of our KSA results posted with different just highlighted information. We post these posters in there once someone meets the goal. So the morning assembly has just really allowed us that opportunity again to celebrate together and to make this data more than just a point of data, that's something that we really strive for and use. Our next section is on teacher retention. So we do have several supports in place because again, we know that teachers are who are making the difference every single day in our classrooms. So for that, we have clear and consistent communication and strong systems. We know that teachers want to work in a place where they know what they're going to expect every day and things run smoothly. So we really pride ourselves on making sure that we are a place where that is happening. We have team leads for all grade levels. Instructional coach and admin provide instructional support. We have our positive behavior intervention systems and our foundations team for behavior support, which is led by our assistant principal and our counselor. We give regular feedback through walkthroughs and unit planning feedback, differentiated supports for teams based on needs, and then those planning days in addition to those equivalence days. And then really, again, just striving to have that supportive, collaborative culture. Our motto at Latonia is we're all in this together, and we really try to live that motto every single day. Last year, we did lose 6 certified teachers. That was a little bit more than we were hoping to lose. We had one moved further away, built a house a little bit further away, and the commute was just too far for her. One left education to pursue a different career. One left to stay home after she had a second child. 2 were not renewed. 1 was due to being a 1-year only position through ESSER funds, and then 1 left to go to Kenton County. So if you go to the next page, again, talking about the data, we used our impact surveys results from last year to really figure out where we needed to focus to improve our supports for our teacher and for our culture and climate. So I know you guys looked at the impact surveys last year, so I'm sure you're familiar with the left-hand side is just all the different major domains. This is how we scored compared to the state, and you'll see we were at or right around where the state scored in most areas. We were a little bit higher in a couple, a little bit lower in others, but we're not far off from the state average. And what we did with that is last year we worked with our team leads, to dissect that data and look at in those areas. So in those areas, there are 5 to 8 questions that contribute to that overall score. So we really broke it down and looked at individual questions and said, okay, which questions were we really struggling with? Where did we score the lowest, and what can we put in place to really address that? So if you go to the next page, and then in your red folder as well, is all the results. So the next page just kind of gives you the general information. If you want information about what specific questions we scored low in, or what specific gains we made in those questions, that is all in the packet. So you'll see like this is where we scored in 21-22, this is where we're scoring now, and then the teacher comments. So if there was something we really took a jump in, they gave comments on what it was they thought contributed to that, or if there were areas we didn't see as much growth in, they gave comments on why that might be. So overall, you will see our biggest takeaways was that staff do feel supported by leadership. They were pleased with PD opportunities this year, and I will go into that a little bit more because I know you guys have some specific questions about professional development. They feel LES is a positive place to work, and one of the things that we did not see as much growth in is they are just still struggling to feel trusted due to some initiatives with planning and assessments, and they're struggling to balance the workload still. So we are still continuing to focus on those and how we can better address those components. So if you go to the next slide for professional development, you will see what professional development, some of them listed up there that we focused on. One of the things they were very happy about this year was more staff choice. Our feedback showed that for PD, favorable responses increased by 37.5% when it came to input. So that had a lot to do with the PD Academy that the district offered this year. Teachers were very, very happy with having those options. At Latonia, we also did one of our PD days where they got to go to peer-led PDs and different people in our building that are experts in certain components presented on things like co-teaching or morning meetings, and they got to pick what sessions they wanted to attend from their peers. So we got a lot of great feedback about that in the comments. And for how often PD helps teachers explore new ideas, the favorable responses increased by about 20.3%. So we saw really good gains in the PD area. Next is curriculum development. So where we are, we continue to follow the district curriculum guides for all instructional pacing. And then the unit planning organizers are used as our main resource when developing unit plans. And then we monitor that through our weekly observations, our unit planning feedback, our planning days, our assessment analysis sessions, and then Mastery Connect. So all of our data is kept in that Mastery Connect system. And then last, for technology, we are continuing to be a one-to-one school. We have iPads for all of our kindergarten through second graders, Chromebooks for all of our third through fifth graders. We use Streambots for math and Lexia for reading for homework every day, as well as for our wing time in our after-school program and for extra support throughout the day. And then Mastery Connect, again, is used throughout the building for individual unit assessments and formative assessments. And then Google Classrooms are in place in our classrooms as well. All right, so I know that I talked fast, because I just wanted to take you guys through everything, because I know you have a lot, but I am more than welcome to take any questions you may have or clarify anything if you need me to.
I will open the floor.
Hi, Saturday school, have you shared that with other principals?
I have not, but I'm happy to.
Please do. Because I think that, I don't think it's there on Saturday either, and if that takes me away from my cartoons, principals.
Can I touch on that? How often do you have students? Is it every week?
No, it just depends on if there is a situation. So we probably had a total of 4 this year, I think. Because I think our AP has done 2, I've done 1, and our counselor has done 1. So I think we've only had to have 4 this year so far.
Do you regularly only have one student, or is it usually a multiple?
Typically, it's 1 or 2. We did have 1 incident this year that involved a whole group of students that had a lot that day. It was 1 incident that just involved quite a few people, but typically it is 1 to 2 students, yes.
I think it's a good idea. Nobody wants to be at school on Saturday. I agree. Any questions? Comments?
Great presentation.
Yeah.
I feel like you've covered everything we put on the sheet very well. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you bringing data to the table. I have to say, that's one of the things I always want to see. We don't often see this level of data explained in the presentation, which is really helpful because, our data is the data, good, bad, and ugly. We just need to look at it, respond to it. So it's really helpful. See how it's
You're welcome. All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Thank you so much. Next up. Good work, drop me with that. Yeah. We will be discussing the strategic plan.
All right, so in your packet is a very rough draft. On the board there is draft of the strategic plan. In fact, it's already been updated since that copy was sent to you, and so I can send you guys, email you the copy as of today. But that will be what happens. Over the next several weeks, we'll keep updating until we get it into the version that we, are all comfortable with, and then you guys can move forward with approving. There are a couple of things that I just want to make note of, and then we can open it up for questions. There has been discussion about, when we developed these goals, we did not necessarily prioritize them. There was discussion at our last meeting that we should prioritize these. And so student learning is going to be moved up to goal 1, and then all the other goals will kind of move down from there. So diversity, equity, inclusion, wellness will become goal 2, and so forth. I did have a chance to meet with our students regarding the draft as of the draft that you have in front of you. And they did include a few things that they did voice their opinion about a few things that they want to be included in the plan. That is highlighted in red, and I just want to call attention to that
They would like to work with, Mr. Hopkins, and I need to reach out to him and make sure he's on board with this, but the students indicated that they feel strongly that they would like to have a 2-year process to applying for colleges. They feel like that this happens too late in their senior year, and they feel like they could have been more prepared if that would have happened earlier in their junior year, maybe even their sophomore year. They have some strong opinions and thoughts about this, and so, you know, I asked them if they would like to write this objective, and they do want to, and they want to work with Mr. Hopkins on that piece. They also advocated for facilities, and I reminded them, you know, we talked about this with the board, we talked about this in our committee work, we talked about this with students, that, you know, strategic plan is not about what we're already doing, it's about what we want to do in the next 5 years. It's continuing what we're doing well, but lifting up what we want to do in the next 5 years. However, the students said, so I reminded them, there's a lot happening within our district around facility upgrades and so forth. And they just want to make sure that those upgrades are kept up with. And so they just want to make sure that their facilities are, you know, up to par when visiting teams come to campus, or, you know, for students who are attending our schools. So that they feel strongly about that, and we certainly want to put some work into what that might look like in terms of keeping up with facilities. And then they also mentioned, you know, they said, we noticed you have something in here around staff retention. What are your thoughts around student retention? We feel like a lot of students leave our district when, you know, and leave for other opportunities when they could have stayed here with us. And so they want to include student retention and as an objective as well. So I took those 3 things, embedded them into the strategic plan. They're highlighted in red in your draft. And we will continue to build on what those are. Because this is coming from the students, we want to make sure the students have, you know, I meet with them 1 hour, so we don't have a whole lot of time to get a whole lot of work done. But, you know, I'll continue to meet with them so that they can have their voice and their thoughts put into those 3 objectives as well, and other parts of it. And then we also know that student behavior was talked about quite a bit in our focus groups, as well as student and staff well-being. And the district is doing some work on our district improvement plan. So we're taking some of that language and embedding it into the strategic plan, which we've talked about, that we won't have multiple plans. We'll have a lot of correlation between all of the plans that we are required to have, but they will complement each other. And so we'll be putting that language into the strategic plan also. So I'll stop there, and I will answer any questions that folks may have.
Of course. Great job. I mean, I just feel like the opportunities for getting out of this process is just really outstanding. I'm planning on, I mean, I know we're getting it now so we can review it and make some comments and have some discussion for the retreat for the next year. So I'm just really excited about the progress that's been made by the whole team, and appreciate the way it's presented. So.
Where would you say this is 100% complete, is like final, everything's done? Where would you see it in the process?
I would say we're getting close. I would say we're about 85%. I mean, we have a lot of tweaking to do, but the meat, I think, is in there, unless folks want to, you know, add some other parts to it. You know, there are next steps once we approve the plan, and so I'm not considering that when I talk about the percentage of being done. You know, we still want to create that outward-facing external document that will hold us accountable to the report card and what those measurements will look like and how it will link up with the DEI report card that you guys are having discussions about. There was a lot of conversation around operationalizing the culture of a graduate and what that would look like at each level. So we need to do that work. And so the strategic plan, 85%. There's a lot more work that probably needs to be done to get us where we want to be in full implementation.
Are each of our strategies should be time bound, or they? I saw some of them kind of are time bound, some of them are time bound with time limits that we're not gonna approve this plan by December 31st.
Yeah, the students made comments about that also, that the timing of some of our strategies might need to be modified, so they were very in tune with that. We of course are talking about time down the 5 years. And some of the strategies do have specific times, so some of them don't. Some of them won't necessarily have, we need to implement and then keep it going. And so, there's not every strategy is gonna have necessarily have an end date to it. But we certainly want to get into full implementation within those 5 years.
And then for the resources side, are we gonna have some dollar figures attached to the future? Because I know we talked about that as a priority and so use this for budgeting purposes.
Yes, where that is possible, we are doing that work. You'll see some of that within the staff retention plan. Not everything is requiring a dollar amount as a resource, so you're not gonna see dollar amounts throughout the entire plan. But yes, there will be, if there are financial resources that are needed, you will see that in the final document.
Are there any further questions, comments? Stacey, this is great. Thank you. A lot of hard work was put into this, and I actually really appreciate the student input, the additions. I thought those were very clever. I do have one small question, because I am just not knowledgeable on this. The golden dustpan. I don't know what that is.
So the golden dustpan was implemented by by Eric Knapp, and it was a competition amongst schools that whoever had the cleanest campus got the golden dustpan, and they loved it. So that discussion was just brought up when we were talking about facilities. Would you like to add anything, Mr. Kimbrough?
It has been relocated. And I can text or email. I'll email you the actual dustpan. So basically Ken Maston and Eric Neff, and now I do facility walks. Schools are graded essentially on certain conditions, and then the highest score gets the dustpan. It went missing somewhere pre-pandemic, and it has since been
So
located.
we won't need to put a dollar amount in that.
It was back.
Stuck out to me. I thought, well, I wonder what that is. So that's really my real question. But a lot of hard work is done into this, a lot of real thoughtful planning, and I appreciate what the next 5 years will look like. So I'm excited for this. Great. Any other thoughts or questions?
I will email you the most recent version.
All right, very good. Thank you, Stacey. Okay, next up, we have our attendance report for the third month, and I believe that this came in one of our packets that came.
Folder. We continue to have some concern around ninth district, continue to have some concern just in terms of going down approximately 5 points, which we need to move some data. I know I'm not sort of broken record on this, but we were funded all throughout the pandemic based on 3589, student count at 95.67%. We're currently looking at 3393, student count down approximately 200 at 91%. So we have a net loss of approximately 200, and net loss of 5%. Obviously, we're concerned about learning loss around that, we're concerned about funding loss around that. So we're continuing to do what we can to encourage kids to do schooling on time every day. Our challenges right now are very aggressive flu, RSV, COVID season. We're reluctant to push too hard and people come to school and get undersick, obviously. So we are walking that line around pushing as hard as we can, but also to be folks when it comes to that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you could.
Around the sickness that is going around, I think we've all probably seen it everywhere. That it's a very strong flu season along with COVID in our students, as you said. Are there any talks about not maybe mandating, but starting the distancing again just a little bit and masking, maybe not mandating, but highly recommending. I just wondered if that was something that has been discussed. Or if there's a point where we say, we need to start looking at this again.
Something to consider, certainly. I didn't see anything from the state.
Okay.
The state did send a survey this week, and it's all PPP saying, how much are you down, how much you feel is related to COVID, or RSV or flu, how much you're down in membership. So I'm hoping anything's put, but maybe we'll take some of this into consideration, so this significant blow, because if there's a bright light here, it's not just us, you know. We were a little higher than the state average. We're just a little lower now, but it's not just us.
I'll add to that, right there, what we're receiving from like the health board is stressing vaccination, especially flu vaccination. And we try to encourage that as much as we can, possibly if we can, also vaccination in the schools and Washington. That's right now what they're recommending we do, but we get all like that, we are keeping an eye on it, and that may be an option that we start talking about, because that will be recommending folks put on masks, maybe we can offer some distance, that might help us not have to close it.
Of course, and the past reports have not been this low. So I mean, it is, at least in my quick observation, is that this is much lower than what the last report. Flu season. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. All right. Okay, next we are going to discuss our district planning. We do have Covington with us this evening.
Good evening, everybody. This is quick. This is for our district planning policy. I'm providing you with a timeline for the continuous improvement planning process. And on your first page, you're just going to see the different phases that we're going through. We are in phase 3 right now. So we're working on the district improvement plan. It is about ready to head out to the public for review. So that'll probably happen in a few days. And then I'll be able to bring it back to you in January for your information and approval. I stuck the KR 5225 in there too for you, so you can see all the components of that if you're interested in reading.
Are there any questions?
When you say go out to the public for review, remind me what.
So once we complete the CDIT, go out through, we'll send it, it'll be on our website. We're gonna send a link out to families and staff. They'll have to find another way, I think. Jana said you might help me with Center for Great Neighborhoods, so we can get that.
I did say that.
All right.
That was the plan.
Any other questions?
I don't believe so. Thank you so much. Great. We have the report of the treasurer. We have. And then we'll have the evening. Good evening.
Becky, can you check, does the audit usually get approved each year? We usually approve it, I don't think we did this time.
Yes, we had it on as April, but under informational improvement, we wanted to be first because of timing.
But usually we do, the board does approve, does accept it, so are we able to go back and do that so that we
You can, because anything that's under informational can always become actionable violation. And it also does say actionable. I don't know if you know what on this. Having trouble making comment.
But you could go ahead and start talking about your other items.
Sure, if that's fine, we can have that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
after you finish your item.
Okay, the first item I have on my packet is, the budget charts and spreadsheets that we usually do around this time. Keep in mind while we wait to do it here, we have a lot of staff that is still trying to figure those salaries in September and October. And so we're trying to get as accurate data before we start doing these charts. And so I usually do it in November and pull snapshots of things. And so this is good information I just did put on the website after we present it to you as a board. It's used out in the community, sometimes Mr. Harrison provides it. So it's just good information to share, with the community taxpayers, whoever would like to do it. So I try to look at people that like charts and spreadsheets. I know people are different types of looking at things. So the first chart in there is the chart of all our funds. All our funds are $122 million. It does look a little deceiving because when you think of construction, the construction projects that we're doing, it's sitting in the construction fund as well as it's sitting in ESSER because that's where the money's sitting for grants. So it kind of overstates it a little bit, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. But just some highlights, the general fund, which is your operating and expenses, is sitting at about 46.4%. The second biggest one is grants at 33%. Usually that's not as high, but again, ESSER, because we didn't spend ESSER. The ESSER money, I continue to keep it in the budget until the amount would go away, and then it'll drop back down after ESSER is gone. Some of the other funds, Fund 51, Nutrition Services, is at about 3%. Your construction is at the 14.25. Daycare is very small scope of all our funds. And you'll notice Red Book is on here this year. That's not been on here before. We have implemented bringing Red Book in-house to Munis in the financial reports. I don't know over the last couple of months if you've seen it Fund 25. That is Red Book. Red Book used to be housed at the schools. They're going to do the same thing with the same money and things. It's just now the purchase orders and all the bills are being paid by my team in finance. A lot of school districts are doing this by a new GASB standard that came about 2 or 3 years ago. All that information was in the software and we were duplicated and put it in this. Double work, more efficient. My team can probably get POs done quickly and checks and get things to what the school needs. Schools, a lot of our elementaries only have one person. They take care of the door, they take care of everything. Kind of one less thing off of their plate. We still have a little bit of Red Book work, but a lot of it got put into so that's why that's on there. So that is something you need to do. The next two charts are general fund revenue and expenses. We really focus usually on the operation expenses. So they're sitting at about 56.5 million. Keep in mind, 11.5 is that on behalf that I talk about. That is where the state pays for some of the general fund benefits and things. And so that gets inflated a little bit. So that's why there's not 11 million that's in there. So what happens is the state says you have to put it on your books as expenses like benefits and different things, but then we give you the revenue. So it's net effective just over the month. So you'll see with revenue, it shows the different revenue streams. One of the biggest revenue streams is the property tax or taxpayer at 30.5, which is part of the general fund. Then you have your beginning balance that's sitting at 18.51. I think that's around $11 million that we had left over from last year that we rolled over. So that's a big chunk. If we didn't have that money, we wouldn't. That's like 19% that helps fund our budget. Another big revenue stream is yeah, where is it? C, yes. That's in 24.41, thanks, Mr. Hager. In regards to it. So the big ones usually are the C, which is the state funding, your property taxes, which is the local, your beginning balance, and then there's on behalf that I talked about, that's number 26. So all the other little ones are on there that actually would make up the 56.5 million. Then you go to the expenses, and some of the big items are the school allocations. 41% goes out to the schools. Then I start breaking it down by different departments that are bigger. We spend a lot on technology to help run the whole district, so I put that separate. that's at about 1.83. The maintenance department, that helps support the whole school district, that's at 2.4. Transportation, transport our kids, that's at 3.77. Building operations, that's the custodians at all the districts. So it's really school related, but I try to break down so you can see some of the kind of the expenses that go through. That's at 4.4. Then you have district-wide departments that help support the district at 9.34. Then contingency sitting at about 10%. Then you have some other little, and so that makes up the expense pie chart. Then recently, I think this is my second year doing this, I put a narrative together to go kind of with the pie chart. So if you're looking at the pie chart, I can go and I start breaking it down, and I say some of the things I'm talking to you now about that it's in this narrative, so that you can read the narrative if you didn't look at the pie chart. That's new, I think, second year. Then I go to people like me that love spreadsheets, and I put the spreadsheets together and give numbers out for the snapshot of the budget, and it breaks it down by categories. Beginning balance this year was 10.5. Then it lists all the receipts, the different categories of money that comes in, and then it shows you the disbursements. And so that's one spreadsheet. Then the second spreadsheet and the last part of this packet is a comparison from last year, fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23. Keep in mind, 23 is budgeted dollars because we're not done with it yet, but then fiscal year 22 is actual. So again, this comes to you usually in December when I pull all the data together to give to you for. This is an information item for going in and put it back up. Any questions? I know it's a lot of data, and there are a lot of people who like that data. They don't do that. This is a net thing that she started 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Tell your friends.
I've never seen any of this, so I pulling that data would be pulling financials and yeah.
And then my other question, I need to talk about this in the budget committee. I did see in the last spreadsheet, and we are budgeting SEEK down for FY 23 over FY 22, but SEEK has gone up. Can you just remind me why we're
See, we already budget, we usually budget at 95%. And so a lot of times I'm looking at the actuals from the previous year and budgeting at 95%. And so that's kind of the trend that I go to budget. And remember, when we have that 5% left, if it does not come, that we get to keep it. Because you know, sometimes the state will take that away. And most of the time they don't. That's why we're conservative about it. We will use that 5% to help fund our next year's budget. And so we won't ever use a budget. Any other questions?
We're down in attendance percentage.
Now we want to go back to the audit. We were discussing this stuff when you were gone, that we usually approve the audit. And so we need a motion to go ahead and take it from information to approval, is that correct?
You can, what we can do is someone can move, place it on the approval agenda items, and then we can get to that point and go for it.
Okay, I'll do that.
I second
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Gashrag?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Hager? Ms. Burbidge?
Yes.
And I move to approve the budget.
I second. Are we doing that?
The audit.
We're doing
Audit.
it.
Yeah, yeah. The audit.
I second.
Ms. Huff? Mr. Gashrag? Mr. Avery? Mr. Hager? Ms. Burbidge?
Yes.
Thank you for me.
My next agenda item is my monthly warrant. It is a little earlier in the month, so some of the warrants you might not see the volume that we normally have. So one reading for December. You'll see the narrative on here, along with the balance sheet, the financial report, some spreadsheets, talking about investments and our bank account, and then the warrants. Just want to let you know, if you see the narrative, there is money sitting in our bank account. I am in those preliminary conversations, talking to banks about investing. Will we come back to you and try to do some, not long-term investing, but maybe more than a year than normally we didn't. So I'm trying to get some of the data collection and then talking to Garrison about it and then eventually bring it to you as a board and say, what would you like to do so that we can try to earn a little bit more money. The economy is getting, in that regard, where the interest rates are going up, that you see, so we are making more money in the bank account on our just sitting in the bank account. But when you invest, you can always make a little bit more. So I'm looking into that because we are sitting on a lot of money, which is because we have that ending balance, which doesn't pay the beginning balance, along with all the tax revenue that's coming in, that came in October, November, and December. Now revenue is at the highest, and it's gonna start dwindling down, and we still have expenses and paying our payroll and stuff. So, eventually we're not gonna have that much in the bank account if we're paying the bills for the next 6 months. But I'm always looking to try to see how we can run it. So we will be bringing that back to you. I just wanted to share that with you, because if you look at the narrative, it shows a lot of money.
Are there any questions for next, any financial related warrant? Expenditure report? Okay. There are no questions. One minute for the agreement of the financials for the warrant expenditure report. Second,
Ms. Huff? Mr. Gastright? Yes. Mr. Avery?
Here.
Mr. Haggard? Yes. Ms. Burbidge?
yes. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have our consent agenda, and before we move to approve this, is there anything anyone would like to pull for discussion? If not, I can have a motion to
Ms. Huff? Mr. Haggard? Mr. Gastright?
Yes.
Mr. Avery? Mr. Haggard? Yes. Ms. Burbidge?
Yes. Moving into the individual approval items, we do have our student trip to Covington, DC. I did see that this was tabled at the last meeting because we were missing a couple of us. I would like to open this for further discussion since some of us were not here last time. And I didn't notice anything that I missed. There we go.
I asked for it to be tabled, because what you just said. So I'm going to just move to approve the school-related student trip, and that way we get a second and get discussion.
Sure.
I plan on voting no for this. Oh, I do believe in field trips, I just don't believe in
Okay. Is there any other thoughts or concerns about the trip? Okay. I respect that thought. I, of course, would like the students to be safe. I just know that I also had trips to Washington. I know that was 20-some years ago, but I think that this is a great experience, in my opinion, and I do believe that the teachers and the other adults will help keep our students safe. So we do have a motion on the table. Becky, would you like to call roll?
Ms. Huff?
No.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Gastright?
Yes.
Mr. Haggard?
Yes.
Ms. Burbidge?
Yes. Be safe, guys. Okay. Next up, we have our equity plan, policy and scorecard. Mr. Harrison is on the agenda today to take questions or have comments directed to.
We've spent quite a bit of time on this, and right now I hope you all wouldn't have any questions. But I'll do my best to address these questions that we have. But this is our plan and policy, and it's been also integrated into the strategic plan work, so. What I want to say.
And just put it on the table, so I'll look for it.
Okay,
That's it.
great. Any further discussion? Yes.
Just have a quick question.
Sure.
So, I know this has been integrated into the strategic plan. Will we maintain both the strategic plan and the equity plan, or does the strategic plan kind of replace it?
We're gonna try not to have two plans, it's a little hard to follow two plans, but I do think we will keep our equity plan and try to stick to it well. Mainly keeping the board updated on the scorecard, how we're meeting with the goals set forth in the strategic plan or the equity plan. that will be, the hope. But to tell you the truth, we really wasn't wanting two plans, especially if they went two different directions.
And I know we're gonna have, eventually, the strategic plan will have a community scorecard, and I'm just wondering, will that equity scorecard kind of
Hopefully
be
merge, yes.
Yeah, I would, for me, I feel like there would be duplication of efforts if we had both plans. So I know that equity plan is, there's the potential maybe that it's a little bit more, has some aspects that the strategic plan doesn't have. So I guess that would be something I would be studying, but I think it'd be good.
I think the folks around the district will say.
You know, there's been research on the subject in other districts, not just in Kentucky, but across the country. I think just my comment is that I feel underwhelmed by our plan. To me, it seems like it's a plan to make a plan. So it's a good first step, but it seems like a plan to make a plan, not an actual plan to achieve equity. And then the policy itself, I'm just curious, like, we vetted the policy for the SBA. You all vetted the policy. Because it doesn't read like a policy. It reads like a great value statement, like a wonderful value statement. I agree with everything in it. I think if you want to say, here's our value statement on equity, this is what we should agree with. This is not a policy. So that's my only, like, I don't want to go with that.
You can't send it to KDP and okay. Where, whoever.
Maybe I felt like we should have gotten some advice from the SBA where our board attorneys turned it into a policy rather than just about.
That can be done, that's not a problem.
That's one question.
Yes. Becky, you are ready?
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Gastroy?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Haggard?
Yes.
And Ms. Worthing?
Yes.
And we'll continue to work with our attorneys at the SBA to flush it out more.
All right, we have our district facilities plan up next. Please be with us.
So if you recall, I came last month asking for the board to, appoint a member, to serve on the committee. And, they have three community business leaders, representatives, requesting the motion for members. Awesome.
Should we wait until we have our new board members on sitting in these seats?
Are you looking for an appointment tonight from a board member or? Oh, okay.
But it's totally up to you.
Yeah, I think we should wait and maybe do it at the retreat. When's our first board meeting?
We will have one if the board adopts it. She has a team and
In your reporters?
in the red colors. So, I know the information or the organizational is the fourth, will be the
And it's typically when members are appointed to committees.
Yeah.
Would that be acceptable?
I just don't think it's fair for us to appoint the board member when we have two new ones coming on board that are interested in sitting in that seat.
Can this be approved without?
Yeah, can we approve it without appointing the board member?
Well, that's all. Well, yeah, I mean, you could appoint community members, you know, you chosen, but I know this some information is, yes, your Congress, and they may be ready to go with that. If they are, you can wait to.
What do you feel about that?
I guess I didn't see the name. Who are the members that were? I guess how are we approving members that?
Well, I thought you guys had numbers in mind.
I do, but I
Right, so,
don't think they put the letter of interest in, so I'm just making sure that it's also now as a requirement.
okay, so we can do that.
Okay.
Exactly what you number
I'm just, I'm willing to start.
that. And you got that from me. All right, send it.
So do we need to approve this, or this is being tabled to the next meeting? Okay. This will be tabled until the organizational meeting on the 4th. Does that sound correct?
Well, I think that's when you appoint your board members. to the
Okay.
committee, but I don't think this is a regular
Okay.
new members.
Yeah.
So, new committee, which would be the 12th, if they
This
apply.
Okay. We don't need to be tabled. Exactly. Okay. Next up, we have our PG 23-252. I'll come back to that. That is for a boiler replacement. Phase 1.
There are 3 boilers that support the majority of the homes campus. One has failed. We have no good options here in that as we're going into winter, we attempt to rely on 2 boilers that have already failed and been inspected to be in not much better condition than the one that just quit altogether. There is a high likelihood that they would not make it through the winter and that we would not be able to have. So we felt we had no choice but then to bring in a temporary boiler that will support to get us through the winter as we investigate the best way to move forward, which may be well to replace all 3 now. Maybe that not, but it would give us the time we have to properly study it. It does seem like a high cost to me, but we don't have much choice at this point. The price went up even as we've been looking at this in the last month, trying to come up with a plan because the unit of lab that secured for us got run out in the time that we were trying to check. So now looking at bringing one up. It's the only one in this part of the country. So apparently supply chain issues are affecting this, like they're affecting many other items. So we're asking for emergency approval on this.
So if you're just wanting to replace the one, that's what you're asking tonight.
Well, it's a temporary replacement at this time. The reason we're not replacing it all together right now is that it's over 11 weeks out, and that would be an absolute minimum. So we don't have time for that. We almost have to rent something, which is what I'm asking for tonight, get it in place in the meantime so that we can get through this.
I move to approve the PG 23-252 emergency boiler replacement and principal phase.
Any other further discussion?
So there are 3 different prices. There's a price in the board type, there's a price on this, and there's a price in the shape.
So there were 3 different options presented to us. Of course, only one is really realistic, and that's the temporary. The one price you saw was before we found out there was an additional $24,000 in cost to bring the unit up from Alabama. And then we might have had one incorrect number because of the contingency and other. We did not have to go into contingency for that part of the cost. So what we're asking for tonight, we have the 124. The number in your pack is the one.
This is why this number says 121.
That one out of the red folders, whatever we requested last night. Literally, this meeting with Blau happened this morning. So if you're wondering why there's a last minute, we were hopeful for that lower number up until this morning when Blau came to me.
And then what are these funds for? Is that invoice?
I would defer to Annette on the sources of the propane.
Just under the construction fund, we have money left over from projects, previous projects that we closed out. And I've been using for PG4, PG5, I set it aside. It's on the financial books under the construction fund that is just sitting ready to be used. So we can, we're not going to have to bond any more money. It's money that's sitting on our balance sheet to be able to use the project. Yeah, not out of that fund.
Would it be quicker if we went and got it, Ken?
That, unfortunately, due to the size of it, we can't. I mean, it's massive, like an oversized load type thing where we're gonna have to have permissions to haul it down certain roads, et cetera. It's one of the boiler's not, I wish we could go pick, we could pick it up. If we could pick it up, it'd be a lot less cheaper than 24. To explain to you, it's just massive.
While you're up there. Are these boilers in the replacement with the high speed construction?
Yes, we are hoping to get it in that project. And in fact, it is.
It is.
All right, well, the motion is made. Are we ready to vote?
So there.
Okay, Ms. Huff?
Yeah.
Mr. Gastroy?
Yeah.
Mr. Avery?
Yeah.
Mr. Hager? Ms. Garland? Yes. Okay. Next, we have our policy here that we're going to hopefully approve, and it is policy 08.1 for the curriculum. We have Mr. Alter here and Mr. Garrison if there are questions.
I'll give the board some background on this. If you recall, earlier, well, back in last spring, there was some information sent out to KSBA about it. For whatever reasons, we were left off of that initiative that is now called school. So, also Mr. Hager was asking about some of those policies while we have adopted this, and we haven't seen any information. Well, since then, I think it was maybe July that we finally got the updates we should have. I think we talked to you all maybe early August. And once again, for whatever reason, this particular policy, although it went out to all of the districts, this particular policy didn't get covered in the stuff that they sent us with the updates. So, I guess a gentleman called us, I guess from someone who just reviews policies, called us and said, we are, we're wondering why your board hadn't adopted this particular policy. And from there, we were like, what policy? You know what you're talking about, we adopted all of it. And he said, he advised us that this policy was missing, so we just got the KSBA. They said, yes, this policy is missing, but you all have the proper policies covered. But in the updated policies that they sent everybody else, they sent them this policy, but for whatever reason, they didn't send it to us. So here we are asking for your approval of a policy that probably should have been adopted last May. Like the other policies normally updated. So here we are. So I apologize to the board, but I don't know how to explain why there are certain policies we're not getting, and why the timeline of this, I don't understand the confusion, but here we are.
Is that something our board attorney could? You can touch it and say,
Yes, that's not a problem.
so this is gonna be our first reading. And we have to have two?
Yes. But again, she did say, because it's so late in the emergency appeal, because it's so late. Now, she did say, the representative that we talked to, did say that we are covered But we still just don't understand the confusion as to why it's just not showing confusion.
So my advice to you is if your reports from the contractor telling you that as written, it's covered, then I think best practice is to conduct the first reading and then approval at the next board meeting. And then perhaps in the meantime, I can get some information gathered about what the disconnect is with the communication between them and the district.
So then, would we have to do this informational meeting since it's on the agenda to vote?
All we have to do is
Table it?
yes.
I propose we table it. By consensus.
That's to the 12th.
There will be an issue with new board members coming on board, so we'll have to push them up to speed with this. I'm thinking they maybe get out to it soon, maybe they won't. Like you said, they will be drinking fire hose, and we'll not look at the stuff, but
No one, there's not a requirement, it's just because one person has a second reading. The second reading is for the benefit of the organizations. So, I think we'll be able to handle this when we get the next board.
Great. Next up, we have our enrollment agreement for the Kent County Deaf and Hard of Hearing Program. How are you? Okay, how are you? Good to see you.
So this memorandum, this enrollment agreement is for, we have a program specifically for students who qualify for deaf and hard of hearing. We have a student that requires services that we can't provide here due to staffing. I don't know if you remember several months ago, or at the beginning of the year, we started a contract with a teacher for deaf and hard of hearing. Her time is limited, so it's not enough.
We're under contract with her, so
Yes, so she knows that her services that she provides it with up to a certain amount. So she knows with this student got in there, she spoke to other students who require services from a teacher who has hard of hearing. So she'll provide services to them.
okay. Well, then that leads me to another question. If she said, because of time constraints, if she can't give our students what they need, could we possibly avoid that contract and just send all the students to Covington County? Sometimes I have to think outside the box.
No, that's a good question. So the other two students, their hearing disability, their hearing impairment isn't as severe as the students that we're sending to Kent County, that would like to send to Kent County. So, I don't know that we would need to send all three students to that program. I also don't know if they have the space in the program for all three at this time. I could look into that. One student is in the 5th grade and she has a cochlear implant, so she doesn't require a fully immersive program for communication. Which is what the Kent County program has, sign language instruction and other communication instruction, which is less necessary.
Would we be providing the transportation for this?
Yes.
Any questions, further questions?
Okay, I move to approve the enrollment agreement in County Deaf and Hard of Hearing Program.
Ms. Huff? Mr. Gastroy?
Yes.
Mr. Avery? Mr. Howard? Ms. Burbidge?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you do?
So,
Oh, you do? I will stay right here. I'm sorry about that. We do have our addendum agenda here. This is a memorandum of agreement for Southeast Schools for services. Thank you.
similar, but we're on the opposite side of the coin. So, Southgate Schools does not have, services for students who require multiple and severe disabilities.
instruction and video. They requested that we pay the students, so we looked into what the cost of that would be. And that helped out with calculating that for us for the second half of the school year. And so we have that in $10,130. So we're looking for permission to bring that student to one of our schools.
I think Ms. Huff asked me this question on the phone, so I told her I was clear, so, yeah, with Southgate can provide me transportation.
Yes. I would just point out one thing in the contract that's written, is that under subsection 1, the term, it says January 3rd, 2022. Clearly that's a typo. So any approval should just reflect the modification that it commences on January 3rd, 2023.
Okay, so I move to approve the memorandum of agreement with Southgate students for services in Covington, Kentucky to begin on January 3rd, 2023.
I expect.
Thank you.
Ms. Huff?
Yes.
Mr. Gasstrike?
Yes.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
Mr. Haggard?
Yes.
Ms. Burbidge?
Yes. All right, next we do have our report of the attorney. Erin, do you have nothing to report tonight? Okay, great. Okay, any further discussion? It might be a little difficult to start something in the parking lot, but we should get to another meeting. Is there anything that anyone would like to start, new business, et cetera?
We'll have our options for higher taxes is that we haven't heard from CPA in a while. And I'm concerned, so maybe we could reach out to them and invite them in and see what's going on there.
Sure, that's a great idea. We do have some items in the red folder. Most of it we kind of went through. There is is it the okay. We have a schedule for the Lady Bulldogs, and there is a meeting schedule. So if you just take a look at that, that is a tentative schedule. And upcoming events, term 2 is almost over. We have our winter break coming up and all kinds of things. We have, in January, there's the equity speaker series will continue on microaggressions, which I think is very fascinating. And anybody who is doing the KSBA, there is something coming up in February. You can get your time in, get your hours in. All right.
Well, I'm out of town.
Oh, man. All right. Is there anything further?
I would like to just wish you both
I know.
well. Thank you for your service. It has been a pleasure.
You all are a true delight. Everybody in this room, thank you. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Be well, keep in touch, and do I have a consensus to adjourn? Thank you. Thank you so much.